All right, everyone, we are back with Studio 67 on the roads. We have Commissioner Rene Flowers here from Pinellas County out here to talk with us today. Commissioner, tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. It's so glad to be here, and I'm so excited that you allowed me to have this time. My name is Rene Flowers, and I have the privilege of serving as a county commissioner here in Pinellas County. And I was elected to office in 2020. And as a result of being elected into office in 2020, because of SB 524, I had to run again. And so June 17th at 12 o'clock noon, I discovered that I was unopposed, so I was reelected without opposition. Prior to that, I had the privilege of serving as a St. Petersburg City Council member in the city of St. Pete. I served as chairman for 2 terms back to back, and also became president of the Florida League of Cities. I had an awesome opportunity then to serve as Pinellas County School Board member, and I provided that service for 2 4-year terms and left there to run for the county commission seat. So I've kind of been around for a minute.
I was going to say, you've been a little bit everywhere.
Your hands have been everywhere. School boards, cities, counties. Mm-hmm. What would you say is your favorite? I know that's a hard one.
It is hard, but I have to say this. While I certainly love working with the school board and with the children, and made a lot of difference while I was there in building of new schools that had been built since 1947, I love municipal government. So even though this is county government, I have to say that I love the fact that I get a chance to deal with police, fire, stormwater, sewer, parks and rec, preservation, because we have a number of historic areas within Pinellas County, and then working with the unincorporated components that don't have a municipal government, but we're providing those services for them. So sidewalks, working with making sure that ordinances are all compatible to neighborhoods, viewpoints, and visions. I think that's the best for me. So certainly being back in county government, I would say, is like super good, super cool.
Now, are you from Pinellas County originally?
Born and raised in the city of St. Petersburg, one of the last sets of babies that was born at an all African-American hospital, Mercy Hospital. So yes, I am 57 years old, going on 58. Do I look good?
You don't look a day over 30.
Why, thank you.
I'm sure that's quite a privilege to represent the city and county that you grew up in. So.
Certainly, it sure is. It is.
What brought you into public service?
Well, it's interesting. My mom went to Tuskegee, which is a historically black college and university, and my father served in the military. They both went to Gibbs High School, which is a renowned historical black high school in the city of St. Petersburg. And so by the time I was born, and by the way, I'm the baby of 12. Wow. So by the time I was born, things started to kind of turn around in the community. Of course, I was born in 1964. 65 was when the civil rights movement really occurred. So I was kind of in the heart of things. But my parents had always been involved, based on their stories. You know, they had always been involved. And so I have an uncle, Judge Frank White, who was just an attorney, civil rights attorney at the time. And he decided that he wanted to run for judge in Pinellas County. And so, of course, family is family labor, free labor. And so my parents worked his campaign. You know, now we have the real high acclaimed campaigns. But then it was very simple, you know, really all based on getting out the vote. So my job, along with my siblings, was to take flyers out door to door. And those flyers was just made on construction paper that were printed, if you recall the printing early on, just kind of cranking them out. So that kind of gave me the biting of the bug, if you will, because, you know, who doesn't love a little kid running to the door saying, I need you to vote for my uncle, and, you know, kind of putting the flyer in the door. And so that really gave me my first taste of politics, because you got a chance then to see, and I didn't realize the impact at the time, but you got a chance to see the impact of having an African American to become judge in a city where the city of St. Petersburg was very racist, very segregated from the strike, from the garbage truck strikes that were held there. Sit-ins were held there in McCrory's right on Central Avenue. We weren't allowed to sit on the green benches. If you ever get a chance to kind of Google that and read some of the stories about that. So I remember those times. And so that was a big deal for me to see this person. And if you got a chance to see him, if you Google him, he was almost 7 foot tall. and had a very deep voice like Barry White. So, to just be able to walk into a courtroom and see him, sitting back there was absolutely phenomenal. I actually ran for my first office in elementary school at Azalea Elementary. And, they have student council, I'm sorry. And so I ran for student council and was on the executive team there, if you will.
What was your platform?
I can't remember what my platform was there, but I can tell you what it was in middle school, because in middle school I ran and won first African American to become president of student council at Azalea Middle School. And my platform there was, believe it or not, diversity and equality. And I actually hand drew money with like my face in the middle of money and passed it out with like gum. I wrap it around chewing gum and stuff and pass it out. So I was buying votes, and I was a cheerleader, and I also ran track. So that kind of, helped as well.
What were your events in track?
They call it 4x100 now, but back then we call it the 400 relay.
Yeah.
And the 220.
I got a track background myself. I was a distance guy. But.
All right. And then when I went on to Dixie Hollins High School, I got very involved, ran track, and was a cheerleader there as well. But yeah, they call it the 4x100 now, the 4x400, but we called it the 400-yard relay.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
So talk us through what's going on in Pinellas County right now. I know there's a lot of things. There's probably challenges hitting you all right now. Do you have any innovative projects coming your way? What's going on?
Well, one of the major challenges is affordable housing, and it's not just in Pinellas County, it's everywhere. And my platform when I ran for city council was affordable housing. And so I was able to accomplish a lot of those things while I served there, and wanted to bring that over into Pinellas County government. We've been blessed to have the penny for Pinellas set aside. So out of that additional penny tax, the revenue that's generated from that, 41% of that goes towards affordable housing. So it's been about $81 million that we've been able to partner with developers who want to build affordable, so that we help buy down the cost of construction. It makes sense for them. So wonderful partners like Blue Sky Communities, Habitat for Humanity, CDC of Tampa Bay have all partnered with us. And so we've been able to provide 880 units of affordable housing in about 3 years. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number of single family homes that have actually been built, but we've been able to do that and put individuals in housing that they can actually afford, so that they're not having to make a choice between electric bill, water bill, rent, and food. And so I put on a housing conference in February of this year. Alan Williams, who used to serve in the Florida legislature, is now the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. He and I are good friends. I gave him a call and said, I need you to be my keynote speaker, and I need you to bring some resources. And he did not hesitate. He came straight down. It was a wonderful conference. And out of that, we were able to really expand the thought process on tiny homes, certainly Palm Harbor homes, expanding garage units, looking at townhomes, because typically you don't see a lot of townhomes. You may see condos here, but not townhomes. But just looking at structures where we can develop housing in lots that are not a traditional size. We're used to building big homes that spread out a half of an acre, maybe an acre, but looking at much smaller structures that go up versus out. My second big love is certainly economic development and community redevelopment areas, because that's how we were able to redevelop the Midtown community in St. Petersburg. And so now we have a CRA in Clearwater in the Greenwood area, and they are off to a wonderful start. And so being able to help small minority and women-owned businesses compete and stay in the running with some of the larger corporate businesses, and forging those partnerships and relationships so that when there are big conferences or something that's going on in the community, they certainly can play off of one another for that. And it also helps my small construction firms that are trying to get in, because it's hard to compete with Ajax and Young and Associates when you don't have anywhere near the resources that they have. But partnering them with those entities so that they can go in as subs, begin to build up their reputation, begin to build and expand their line of credit, and then they're able to then apply for much larger projects that really begins to put them in line with some of the big boys, as we say. So those are my passions. Those are the things I've been able to work on, and so far we've been pretty successful.
It's crazy because most people that I know in the state of Florida post-college want to move to Tampa, and they want to move to Pinellas County. So it's interesting that like the properties out there have totally been like price gouged, and there's just been this insane crisis. How can you get the state legislature, the governor, to understand what's going on in your county? I know locals know best, but how do you relay that information?
It has truly been a challenge. As a matter of fact, just last Tuesday, when we had our county commission meeting, the state legislature has written legislation that doesn't allow us to put into place rent controls. Mm-hmm. That would be one way. That's certainly how New York was able to deal with its problem. Mm-hmm. And so since we can't do that, we started looking at ways that we could encourage those individuals who manage rental units to look at the costs associated with rental. For example, and I had a long conversation with the Bay Area Apartments organization. It's a group of landlords and different companies that actually rent either large complexes or single units. And here's an example. Someone's rent was $1,800. They received a notice in the mail for the renewal, $3,600.
That's nuts.
So that's not a 3 to 5% increase, even addressing cost of living. We know that labor is a topic or a subject. We know that supplies or the lack thereof. But there is no one that can tell me that the cost of renting that apartment went up 100%. Absolutely not. And so the ordinance that we want to put in place that we addressed, and we were going to pass last Tuesday, but there were 2 areas of question that we wanted to follow up on, would prohibit an apartment complex from not accepting your voucher. So there are safe at home vouchers. There are HUD Section 8 vouchers. There are different organizations that help individuals to be able to afford an apartment. Well, if you can command market rate, why would you even participate as a landlord in this process? Mm-hmm. So what we found happening was, HUD was offering the vouchers, mm-hmm. but we didn't have enough landlords that would take the voucher. So you were still out of luck. And I'm not talking about, and I hate when people want to put individuals in the categories, oh, those are poor people. Well, you could make $15 an hour now and still be considered poor. You know, you can be a police officer, a nurse right now, and still be considered poor because you're not able to pay the first, last, and security to move into a place. It runs you about $9,000 if you use the $3,600 scenario I just gave you. So to pay first, last, and security in that, and sometimes persons are asking for 2 months,
right.
of Mm-hmm. So that's about $9,000. If you have that, you should be able to buy a home.
Right.
So why get an apartment? But people don't have that. So we're looking at ways that we're trying to work with the landlords because we don't want it to seem forced, but we also want to show them there are people living right here in your community that could benefit from what you have. And for years, you're in business because they have been your customers. Mm-hmm. And so one of the apartment guys that was on with the call, he said, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, my folks are coming from New York. And when I tell them the price, they are in seventh heaven because it's nowhere near what they pay up there. Yeah. And I said, I understand that, but you have to understand we don't make those kind of salaries here. Mm-hmm. So what if they didn't come down? I said, and at some point the market's going to be saturated. It always happens. This happened, if you recall, we had the housing market issue and then the crash, like from 2005 to 2007. And some entities are still trying to recuperate from back then. I said, so we're going to have that ebb and flow, and that's going to happen. Then what are you going to do? You're going to be stuck with a lot of inventory. The bank doesn't care about what you thought or what you could get. And so you're going to need to utilize that space. So we're working with them on that. But one thing that they said to me that I was not aware of is that homeowners insurance companies are charging them additional insurance rates if they rent 20% and above to 60 to 80% AMI consumers. That's wrong. I don't know if it's illegal. I think it is. And so we have our attorneys looking at that and talking with some other agencies, certainly the Insurance Commission that governs that, because if they are doing that, that is totally out of line and inappropriate. And they're going to have to, in my opinion, show a better case. And if not, we'll just send them to the Office of Consumer Affairs and take care of it in a legal way, because you are discriminating when you do that. It shouldn't matter who I rent to. You're getting your amount of rent that you're asking for that unit.
Absolutely.
So it shouldn't matter how you got the money. You got the money. other than illegal money, but you got the money. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do and work on, because people that are coming back from college, they can't afford, or else it's 4 people to an apartment.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
That's what we're dealing with. Right?
4 people to an apartment, you know, and who wants that? You want to come home, you had a bad day, you want to kick off your shoes, you know, grab some ice cream out the freezer, turn on Netflix, and just sit there and mellow. Right. You can't do that when you have 1 bedroom and you got, you know, you're taking turns on who's going to sleep in the bed.
Who gets the closet?
Yeah. And we are thankful because ARPA funding that we received to help with foreclosures and to help with people that were being evicted, that saved so many families. Never in my lifetime have we ever been able to help a family with first, last, and security, and then to move if they needed to move because the rent still was going to be too high for them to continue with. And some utility assistance, you know, if that was needed. And can you imagine a man, you know, he's a lieutenant with the police department, sheriff's department. He's normally, you know, the breadwinner in the household. His wife works as well. They've been typically able to afford wherever it is that they're living. And all of a sudden they get a renewal notice and they can't make it. So, you know, you may not want to say you're sleeping in your car, but there are some families sleeping in their cars with their children. What does that do for the child who's trying to do their homework? And you're doing it by flashlight at night.
Well, and it's cyclical is what it is. Yeah. I mean, you just keep falling into the same pattern.
You're putting more and more people, you're putting more and more people into that area of homelessness and poverty. So it just goes beyond the definition of working poor at that point. You know, it's horrible. So hopefully we will be able to work it out. But yes, all government is local and it really hits us first. And so Tallahassee has their rules. People don't care about that. They want to know what we're going to do. Right. And so we're trying to come up with some creative ways. Don't want to put people out of business. This is a capitalistic society. I want you to make money. What I'm saying is, I know things have gone up, but they haven't gone up 100%. So if you need to do a 3% rent increase, 5% rent increase, I get it. If someone is trashing your apartment and your unit, keep their security deposit. That's what it's there for. But you can't blame everybody or assume that everybody is irresponsible when it comes to your property and take that out on the people that follow, or just because somebody from up north can afford to pay it. You're totally wiping out the market for those of us that live right here.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that, you know, whoever's listening out there is able to gain some sort of wisdom. I know I have.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing and for sharing some of your time here at the conference with us.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. My pleasure. I feel like I'm at the Breakfast Club, you know.
Yes.
Get to be around with everybody.
Thank you for what you're doing for your residents.
Thank you.
County.
Commissioner, it is hard to imagine someone more passionate about this subject than you are. So, you know, we'll definitely be following your progress and circling back on some of these things with you.
Yeah. Please do. And I chair the Urban Caucus here for the commission, so I'd love to maybe even come back to you and just talk about what we're doing there in the Urban Caucus, because we just had our webinar series that dealt with inclusion and diversity. And so we have some others coming up that'll be about housing, transportation, things. So love to have you.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Yeah.